Hey there drone fans, Rick here again with another quick tip for you Mavic 2 owners. Today's tip is going to focus on 2 adjustments you can make to the gimbal to give you much better cinematic footage when you're flying your quad. Now I've had a lot of questions from you guys about these 2 particular adjustments, so what I'd like to do is explain the 2 adjustments first, then give you my recommended settings that'll give you the best possible footage when you're flying your quad. Then I'll actually put the quad up, fly it down the lake a little bit over a small island down there with the original settings that come from the factory on the quad. Then I'll do the same shot again with the settings that I recommend, and you can see the difference between them. So the 2 adjustments you're going to want to make, and I'll show you how to get at those when I get back to the shop, are the pitch speed and the pitch smoothness. And there's a lot of questions out there about how those affect the movement of the gimbal up and down. Now the pitch speed varies between 1 and 100. 1 would be the slowest and 100 would be the fastest. It comes set from the factory at 20, which is pretty quick. And what that means is when you're spinning this dial to actually move that gimbal up and down, it's reacting almost instantaneously to your finger movements. The challenge is it's hard to be discreet on this wheel. You can, vary it a little bit and it starts jerking around. So slowing that down really has a big impact when you're flying over something and looking down. So the pitch speed is something you're going to want to adjust to actually slow the movement of that camera down and up when you're flying over a particular object. Now my recommended setting on that is 10. It comes from the factory at 20. I cut that half in 10, and what that means is it's going to move a lot slower down and up, which is really a good thing. The second adjustment is the pitch smoothness. Now, a lot of people have asked me about that. There's a lot of confusing theories as to what that does. People tend to think that that makes the movement through that travel smoother, and actually it isn't that. What it is how quickly the gimbal reacts to you moving that wheel. So there's a ramp up period and a ramp down period, and that adjustment varies between 0 and 30. I don't know why that's 0 to 30 and the other one's 1 to 100, but that's academic. It's 0 to 30, and what I'll call those 2 endpoints are sticky and slippery on the high end. So when it's set from the factory at 15, it basically starts when you touch the wheel and it stops when you let go of the wheel. And that's not a good thing, because cinematography really involves the way you look at things. And when you're looking around, you don't jerk your head and stop like this. You tend to move a little bit and slow down as you're approaching the endpoint. And that's exactly what that pitch smoothness will do for you. So the more you turn it up, the more it'll actually slide past the endpoint of when you stop it, and the slower it'll react to when you start moving it. So I adjust that down to 20. 20 is the perfect setting for me, because what that does is it doesn't immediately react to me moving that wheel. It takes time to react and then slowly ramps up, and it moves to the position I want. And when I let go of the wheel, it slowly ramps back down. So it's a very smooth entry to that downward or upward motion, and it's the same thing on the exit of it. So enough talking from me now. Let me fire this thing up. So I'm going to set it up first with the factory settings on here of 20 and 15. Then we'll send the quad downfield, and I'll send it over that island like I'd mentioned, and we'll get a good look at exactly what it looks like with the standard factory settings on it. Okay, good to go.
The home point has been updated. Please check it on the map.
All right, so I'm approaching that little island down there that I was talking about. And as I fly over that island, I'm going to pan down so you get a feel for what it looks like. And you can see as I fly over it, that panning down, even with the best control I've got, it's not quite as smooth as I'd like. All right, so let me spin it around. We'll bring it back a little bit, and I'll make the adjustments and I'll show you the difference. Now, if you're really good at flying this thing, you could control it quite a bit on your own to sort of make sure that it's smooth, but the challenge is that it's really difficult to, number one, control that. You have to be really, really gentle with it over there. If your finger moves even a tiny bit, it's going to move kind of jerky. By making it smoother, it's going to ramp up more slowly, and it's going to take its time going through there. So you've got a lot more, I guess, latitude in there to be a little sloppy on the wheel and still have it react very well. So let me pull it back a little further, and then I'll make these adjustments. Now again, the recommended adjustments I have on this are going to be the 2 settings I mentioned before. So I'm going to put the pitch speed at 10, and I'm going to adjust the pitch movement to 20. Let me just get back into those settings real quick. And you can do that just by tapping on it and making the adjustments. All right, now let me look backfield, and we'll fly over that same island as we did a second ago. Now you watch as I'm approaching it, I'll start panning down, and it takes a second for it to actually make the adjustment, but it's much smoother when I pan over top of it. So it gives you a much more buttery smooth, I want to keep my eye on the quad as I'm talking, a much more buttery smooth response to that gimbal assembly which for my eye, from a cinematic perspective, it's not as jerky, it's not as obvious that I'm flying a quad. It's nice and smooth when I'm panning down, looking at the things below me, and it's also, I like the fact that it takes a second to ramp up and it takes a little bit of time at the end to ramp back down, because that smooths the beginning and the ending of that actual movement. So that's pretty much it. I'll go back now into the shop and I'll show you exactly how you make these adjustments inside the application, and then I'll have a couple of closing thoughts at the end of this. So stay tuned and we'll get back to the shop. I'm back at the shop and I'll show you how to make those two adjustments. Now these gimbal settings are a little bit hidden in one of the submenus, so I'll put up a couple of screen captures that'll walk you through the process and make it as easy as possible to follow along. You'll want to start on the main page of the DJI Go 4 application. And if you look closely in the upper right hand corner, you'll notice three little dots. If you tap those dots, it takes you to the general settings page. About 2/3 of the way down on the left hand menu, you'll see an icon that looks like a camera. If you tap that, it takes you to the main gimbal settings page. Now you can't actually make the adjustments from here because they're hidden in the advanced settings page. That's the second menu item down. If you look to the right of that, you'll see a little arrow. If you tap that arrow, it takes you to the advanced settings. Now there are both of the adjustments that I talked about earlier, the max gimbal pitch speed and the gimbal pitch smoothness. And they're both set at the factory settings of 20 and 15, which is the way the quad's set up when you first open up the box. Now you can adjust those by tapping the icons to the right and either dragging that ball left and right or using the plus and minus symbols that are on there. And my suggestion would be to change the max gimbal pitch speed to 10 and the gimbal pitch smoothness to 20. Once you've made those adjustments, you can hit the back arrow up top and then exit that screen by tapping the left-hand side of the main screen, and you'll come back out to the main menu, and then you're all set to go. So I like flying with those particular settings. I find it to be very cinematic and very smooth when I'm putting the quad up, especially when I'm going down looking at something, trying to get a little bit of drama into the shot, or I'm pulling up looking at something. I just like the fact that it doesn't start immediately and jerk up. It actually takes its time to smoothly come up. Same thing going down. It really does make a big difference in your filmmaking. So hopefully you found this clip helpful. If you have other suggestions or you have other settings you like to set those things on, let me know below, because I'm really always experimenting with this thing to find the best possible combinations of settings to give me the best footage I can capture when I'm out there flying. Again, thanks an awful lot for watching. I love putting these kind of clips together, and I hope you guys are finding value in them. As long as you are, I'll keep producing them. So thanks an awful lot for tuning in. If you have any questions at all, drop them in the comments below and I'll get back to you. And until next time, happy flying.